Aaron Wilcox. You're followed by Roy Warden.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Aaron Wilcox. I live at 228 North 4th Avenue in Tucson. I'm a writer, editor, and of late, a performance artist. I'm here today as a guest reader for the performance art project called Tucson the Novel, an experiment in literature and civil discourse, which is supported by the Arizona Commission on the Arts. This is reading number 28. This week, we continue the story of Alex Alexander, an activist and restaurant owner working for the preservation of Tucson Hill, which has been purchased by a land developer named Eric Emerald. Alice's activist arch rival is Hiram Dexter, a local property rights lawyer. Tonight, the City Council was scheduled to vote on the master development plan for Tucson Estates, the luxury shopping mall and stuccoed condos that would compose Eric Emerald's latest and most egregious rape of the desert. Hiram Dexter's legal brief would undoubtedly demand that the state of Arizona sue the city of Tucson for failing to allow a landowner to put the property to highest and best use. Highest and best having been defined by the good old boys who ran the Arizona Territory 114 years ago as either constructing buildings or grazing cattle. The council was spineless when it came to the threat of lawsuits. Their mouse-like city attorney was always telling them they'd lose. Business at Alice's restaurant wasn't great. As usual, the defenders of Tucson were the only people in the place, and they just drank coffee. Sometimes on payroll days, there wasn't enough left in the bank to cover Alice's check. When the meeting ended with no new customers having wandered in, she closed the restaurant and went home, bringing her stress along. The trouble with Hiram Dexter was his wicked intelligence. If he weren't bipolar, he'd have been wildly successful. In his manic phases, he drew in fresh allies, Tea Partiers who slobbered over his blog posts on the insidious relationship between radical environmentalism and the endangerment of Christianity. They wrote letters to the editor. They testified at Board of Supervisors meetings. They drove to Phoenix to lobby the governor. Over the years, Alice's character had been subject to all manner of personal attack initiated by Hiram Dexter and his minions. At a West Side Neighborhood Association meeting in 1999, he'd laughed aloud at Alice's comments about the need to preserve the ancient native people's walking paths that crisscrossed the Tucson parcel. He'd called her a pagan heterophobe. In response, she'd exposed her armpit to him, knowing the sight of the gray tuft growing there would send him into a state. Thank you.
Roy Warden. And you're followed by Eric. It looks like Snep.
Good evening. You know, I've been investigating reporting on the Gilmartin judgment, and what I believe has been a misappropriation or theft of public funds to pay a personal debt, a punitive damage award, against three city officials. That would be Richard Miranda, former chief of police Smith, and Jesse Ochoa, who was the assistant police chief. Now, you folks don't know it, but I've actually got the settlement agreement that Mike Rankin wrote several years ago. And it's an absolutely surprising document. And within the next 3 or 4 days, I'm going to be disseminating that document to all the people involved, which would be you folks up here, every judge and city employee over at the city court, the prosecutors and the public defenders, frankly, also to Judge Zapata, who I'm sure will be very surprised that Mr. Rankin, on behalf of the city of Tucson, absolutely circumvented the law and used city funds, public funds, to pay punitive damage award against Miranda, Smith, and Ochoa. This is a criminal matter. It's not a matter of controversy. He expresses a very novel opinion that, in general, cities will indemnify their employees against any damage that they might do. And that's correct, insofar as any unintentional damage that's done by mistake, done because of bad policy, done because of poor training. Indeed, the cities indemnify the employees against that. However, they don't indemnify against intentional malfeasance. or in Arizona, what's known as acting with an evil hand and an evil mind. The jury heard all of the evidence. The judge heard all of the evidence. The judgment was entered. Punitive damages of $2 million against Miranda, Smith, and Ochoa, and he used public funds to satisfy it. In the fullness of time, you folks have basically 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks, after I sent this to all the judges and lawyers in town and the other people involved, I'm going to be sending a copy up to Russell Pierce and Tom Horn, the Attorney General, because I do believe it's been a criminal misuse or a criminal appropriation of funds for an unlawful purpose. Now the question will be, what will you folks do in the meantime? You have a duty to investigate this, you have a duty to research it, you have a duty to look after the public interest. All these public employees that are taking furlough days, they're going to wonder, why is the city paying his personal debts when they have to take furlough days? This isn't going away. It's explosive. There will be action by the Attorney General. Russell Pierce and the Attorney General hate you people. They believe you're behind open border policy. You know they think Tucson's a sanctuary city, and now they got something to come after you with. God help you.
Eric?